Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out this black-red mid-range deck featuring Clive, aka Vial Smasher the Fierce as our commander, voted on by my supporters on Patreon. Now this is one of those commanders with a partner ability, which are new to Arena, meaning we could play another commander with a partner ability alongside it and essentially have two commanders, potentially playing up to 4 colors if we pick the right one. But I made the conscious decision just to play Clive by himself so we can focus more on his synergies. So Clive is a 3-mana 2/3, says whenever we cast our first spell each turn, that's both our turn as well as the opponent's, we get to choose an opponent at random, which in 1v1 is just our opponent, and then we get to deal damage to that opponent or a planeswalker they control equal to that spell's mana value. So this deck wants to accelerate its mana so we can start casting some expensive spells so we can deal a lot of damage with our commander's ability. And then instants that we can cast in the opponent's turn also gets a little bit better since we can maybe trigger Clive twice per turn cycle. We'll also have a lot of delve spells since we can cast them for relatively cheap and then still have a high mana value, so Clive can deal a lot of damage. And then we'll see a lot of X spells throughout the deck as well, since the more we pay for X, the higher the mana value while the spell is on the stack, so then we can also deal more damage with the Vial Smasher. So taking a look at our deck breakdown, we've got a lot of mana acceleration since we need to be able to make a lot of mana to cast those expensive spells, so a lot of mana artifacts and treasure token makers. Then we've got a lot of spot removal as well, since we need to be able to drag the game out to get to the late game where we can get the most out of our commander's ability. We've got some additional card draw engines, so we can hopefully get enough resources to pull everything off. Then we've got additional finishers. These include planeswalkers and the aforementioned X spells that can deal a lot of damage with our commander's ability. And then our miscellaneous section has a few more sweepers to keep the board clear and other effects that can help close out the game. So now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration, you've seen Chrome Mox and Dark Ritual in my decks before, can lead to some busted starts. Ragavan, with all our removal, can easily clear a path so it can connect and make additional treasures. And then we've got our typical 2-mana artifacts, Arcane Signet, Cold Steel Heart, Guardian Idol, Mind Stone, Transformer, and the Iron Crag. At 3 mana, we can maybe ramp using the Goblin Shaman that we get from Fable, also a way to improve our hand. And then we've got Relic of Legends, can maybe tap Clive to make mana, since a 2/3 is not great at attacking. And then the Celestus can also maybe improve our hand as it switches between day and night. The Power Stone can make 2 mana if we get to untap with it. Chandra can be used as removal, a source of card advantage, or a way to make 2 additional mana each turn. And then at 4 mana we've got some more artifacts with Hedron Archive, can also be sacrificed to draw, or the Ring can also maybe tap opposing a non-land permanence down. And then a Solemn can also find an extra land when it enters, draw a card when it dies. Goldspan Dragon can make extra treasures, which make double the amount of mana. And Gilded Lotus can also help us maybe double spell the same turn we cast it, so we can maybe trigger Clive in our turn and then cast a 2 or 3 mana instant in the opponent's turn to trigger Clive once again. Then our removal at 1 mana has Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt, the classics. Burn spells in general are good, since we can also point those at our opponent to close out the game. So that's why we also have Galvanic Blast, since we've got plenty of artifacts to enable Metalcraft, so we can maybe deal 4 damage with it. 1 discard spell with Thoughtseize, as it's the most versatile one. At 2 mana we can also deal with Planeswalkers using Bitter Triumph, Sheoldred's Edict. There's Angrath's Rampage, which can also go after artifacts. And Molten Collapse can destroy creatures or Planeswalkers, maybe get a freebie extra permanent as well. Abrade can also answer artifacts. Then we have Withering Torment, one of the few answers in red-black for enchantments. Bonecrusher Giant lets us stomp, and then we can still play a 4/3 afterwards. Kolaghan's Command is also quite versatile, can also deal with artifacts. The Disintegration can also deal 3 additional damage on top of maybe triggering Clive, so that's 6 damage total in addition to destroying a creature. Feltha Profane can either be a land or a 4-mana removal spell. We've got the various elementals here. Grief can maybe make the opponent discard a card, and Fury can deal 4 damage when it enters. So these are also good to evoke with Clive in play, and we'll still get to deal 5 or 4 damage respectively. And then the Delve spells, as we mentioned, are also very synergistic. Can maybe Murderous Cut for just 1 mana by exiling 4 cards from our graveyard, but it's still a 5-mana spell, so that's 5 damage, potentially in the opponent's turn at instant speed with Clive in play. And then Glorybringer can exert to deal 4 to a non-dragon. And the Black March can also gain us a bunch of life back and another instant that we can cast in the opponent's turn to deal a lot of damage with our commander. Then we can draw additional cards with Knight's Whisper, a relatively recent addition to Arena, a better alternative over Sign in Blood when you maybe don't have double black early. There's Black Market Connections, which can draw us extra cards each turn, make treasures, or maybe shapeshifters as well. Phyrexian Arena just draws 1 card at the cost of 1 life each turn. Big Score, another powerful instant that we can cast in the opponent's turn to trigger Clive, make additional treasures, and then maybe cast something even bigger on the following turn. And then the One Ring doesn't really need an introduction as another powerful card draw engine. Then we can also close out the game with Shieldred. Drawing extra cards can now gain us life. There's Liliana, which can make zombies or make each player sacrifice 2 creatures. Chandra can also go digging for additional burn spells to close out the game, and then we get to double the first instant and sorcery we cast each turn. The Gearhulk, with a relatively high mana value throughout, can also deal a lot of damage when it enters. We've got the Red Overlord, can also be impended, in which case it still deals 6 damage with Clive in play. Breach the Multiverse can maybe find some of those creatures or planeswalkers, as well as in the opponent's graveyard, and then we also get to fill the graveyard for the various Delve cards. There's Ugin, since we have a decent amount of colorless spells to go with it. Devil's Play, one of the many burn spells that can also be flashed back out of the graveyard. There's Electrodominance, so we can maybe cast another spell alongside it for free. Then a Cut to Ribbons can first be used as an efficient removal spell, and then the Ribbons half can burn the opponent to death. And Empty the Pits, another Delve spell that can maybe make an army of zombie tokens in the opponent's end step and deal a ton of damage in the process. And then our miscellaneous section has a few more board wipes with Toxic Deluge. There's Damnation, and Spiteful Banditry can also sink a lot of extra mana into it. Dark Petition can tutor up whatever we want, and we're pretty good at enabling Spell Mastery. And then we've got another Delve spell with Gurmag Angler that we can maybe cast for cheap once we have Clive in play. And then we also have a Screaming Nemesis in case we're up against a deck that can gain a lot of life to be able to shut that down. And then the mana base is pretty straightforward. One of the few utility lands is Arena of Glory to give our creatures haste. We've got the channel lands for added interaction, and then lots of black-red dual lands for fixing, including, of course, lots of fetch lands, which are great at enabling our Delve cards. And then we can find Blood Crypts and Theater among some of our mountains and swamps, and this can let us surveil 1, which can further fill the graveyard for us. So yeah, that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, facing Yuriko, so a ninja deck. Not going to be an easy matchup, although we do have some instant speed removal, so maybe this can work. Could let them ninjutsu their commander and then destroy it. Although they can always ninjutsu for 2, since there's no real commander attacks. Could also just destroy whatever 1-drop they play. So they wouldn't be able to ninjutsu in the first place, and they don't get to pick up their 1-drop again. Yeah, that seems fine too. Was maybe worth it to just get a Blood Crypt. Although possible, I'll end up getting the Surveil land instead. Now Hacker. That's fine, so I can call against commands, deal 2, make you discard. Don't care about destroying the map token. And then we still have Disintegration as a 3rd removal spell. Opponent's just hardcasting Yuriko. And Cut can also take care of it. So let's see here. How bad is it if we get hit once? Usually want to avoid it. So maybe I should just cut it now. Could also try to play Clive and block, but it's unlikely to work out. I'll just play it safe. And then I'm a little bit short of playing a Gurmag Angler here. So we can pass, get our Surveil land. Naga also worth destroying. So yeah, a lot of must-answer creatures. Signet could be alright, although putting it in the graveyard's good for Gurmag. Upside of Signet is that it lets me play Signet into Disintegration. Maybe that's good enough. Since then we also control an artifact, so we get to deal 3 more. Gotta hope they run out of creatures at some point. And they do not. Prosperous Thief is next. Although Murderous Cut now an answer. So I could play Clive and then pass with Murderous Cut available. And then if they remove Clive, we have an answer. If they don't, I can just block. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. And by waiting until their turn, we make sure we trigger Clive's ability. This could backfire if they have cheap removal and a counter spell. And Dark Ritual makes me hold my breath here. Fell the Profane. Alright, let's try. Gotta exile 3 cards. Keep Cut to Ribbons. That works. Their opponent takes 5. We lose Clive, but that's fine. And I'll actually keep it in the graveyard for Gurmag Angler. So, can fetch. And then do I have the mana to ring first? So 5, 6, 7. Yeah, should be able to play the ring. And then still delve Gurmag. Making sure to exile Clive. And then now we can send it to the command zone. Got a 5/5, can still Aftermath Ribbons for more damage. Also could have looked into maybe giving Gurmag Angler haste with the arena. Alright, now Ginger Brute can sneak past the Gurmag Angler and still ninjutsu. So that's gonna happen. Although not this turn. And now a Braid is actually an answer. So we keep finding the answers we need. And I guess the ring could have also technically tapped it down. So I can play Clive and then still have a Braid up. Hit you for 5. Can maybe let the opponent invest the mana to make Ginger Brute unblockable before we abrade it. And then next turn Ribbons with Clive in play should be more than enough. Well, it took a very specific hand to have a chance against Yuriko, just infinite spot removal. Opponent hardcasting Shadow of Mortality. Normally that's a card they want to reveal to deal 15 damage. But yeah, 7/7 blockers, not bad here. But if they can't counter the Ribbons, they still get burnt out. And Braid also deals 2 damage. And then Ribbons for 6 is the finishing blow. Deal 8 with Clive, and 6 more. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing off against Tifa, so we need all the removal we can get our hands on. We do get to start with Lightning Bolt, which is nice, although the rest of my hand leaves a lot to be desired. Chromox without another spell to pitch to it is not gonna be very helpful. And the turn 5 Liliana is probably going to be too slow. But yeah, it's got potential. Maybe I should still try it. Can just surveil turn 1 and look for either a ramp card or more interaction. Elvish Mystic, they can keep. This is not your typical ramp deck. We really need to focus on keeping Tifa in check. Well, Toxic Deluge is certainly helpful. So, don't think I'm Chromoxing out Clive, even though it's an option. But I would like to keep all my removal, and then Deluge can clean up. The problem here is our opponent potentially casting other ramp spells first, So then Deluge is less effective. But now I get to play Clive, and we drew Galvanic Blast, so that's another answer for Tifa. Reason to Chrome Mox now is that we don't waste Clive's trigger, but I don't think that's super relevant in the grand scheme of things. And I'm pretty happy keeping all the removal spells in hand. So our initial plan is to maybe Deluge for 2 and then still have Bolt available. Opponent maybe has a fight spell. Chocobo Kick, returning a land. So Clive down. Back to the command zone. We'll see if the elf attacks. It does, so they don't have any protection spells in hand that we know of, although I guess Mox Amber could still cast one. But if I just Deluge for 3, that plays around any +1 counter effects they might have. Can probably spare the 1 extra life. And if they have a Giant Growth instead, I could still blast in response. So that works. Yeah, maybe I actually should have just gone for X equals 2 to bait out whatever 1 mana instant they have. Although now I can just take out Tifa. And we'll see what they have left. Fortification, so they did actually have a +1 counter as it turns out. Now I'm not opposed to just Chrome Mox Liliana minus, and then it's going to be 6 mana to redeploy Tifa, and we can start making zombies to chum block. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Don't expect too many haste creatures that could finish off Liliana. And then it should be at least 2 more turns before we see Tifa again, at which point we can maybe -4 a second time. Okay, so make a zombie. Can a Lotus and then still play Clive. Yeah, I guess there will be a window where our opponent can redeploy Tifa. And we won't be able to -4. So there's still a window where they could wombo combo me. So that's scary. But we have depleted some of their resources at least. Tifa's back. And that was an epic top deck. So Liliana, make a zombie. Question is, do I call against command now? I can destroy Mox Amber, deal 2 to Tifa, or maybe better, make them discard, deal 2 to Tifa. And then hope their hand is not hexproof trick, plus like escape shift, because then I could be dead. But better to do this now as opposed to their upkeep, because otherwise a pump spell is going to be a lot more devastating. Yeah, opponent had the Giant Growth. So Tifa lives, but they'll only get to keep 1 card. So hopefully it's not too bad. Enter the Unknown, explore on top. That's fine. You have a fetch land left, a Lanor Elves. Alright, so Liliana lives. More importantly, we're not dead. And then step 1 attack, and then I'll -4. Opponent jumps. Makes sense. Still got a -4 here, I think. I mean, I don't have to, but it's probably safest that I do. If I -4 Liliana, I don't get to draw any more cards. That's the main drawback here. But I think it's still safest that we go for it and then hope our top decks are kind to us. Don't want to take any unnecessary risks.
Time to get dirty.
Replay Clive, and then I can keep the relic for next turn. Knight's Whisper is excellent, draw 2. find a bunch more removal, so that's exactly what we needed. And I can keep the relic for next turn. So we trigger Clive. Tifa's back. Can use the disintegration. That's 6 damage total. Molten Collapse actually also gets to destroy the Mox Amber, so that's a nice bonus. Play Relic, deal 3. Attack. And the next turn we should be able to cross the finish line. Well, that was a close one. There was definitely a window where we still could have died. Fight rigging resolves. And our opponent explodes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing the Rune Knight, so kind of a Mardu discard deck. Yeah, that's a powerful commander, although our hand is basically all removal. Could be a good thing or a bad thing. Depends how it lines up against our opponent's plan. But I'll try it. Dealing 4 lines up well against our commander. Keep up a Lightning Bolt. Nothing turn 2. Still gonna fetch. Opponent does have Thalia, after all. Yeah, can maybe keep Lightning Bolt and for now just abrade it. Kolaghan's Command would also be an answer. Could also wait for them to maybe untap and play something else. But now Kolaghan's Command can also deal with any artifact they might present. Like a Chromox. So they could play their commander out now. So can discard, draw, and then potentially get additional +1 counters. Discards Grief. So this turn I guess we'll just cut and play a tap land. And then next turn we can maybe Kolaghan's Command the Mox. Keep Fury as an option to maybe hardcast. And Grief goes by as well. I don't think I need to prioritize it, so would rather find more mana acceleration. Or just a land, so we can curve out better. And Guide of Souls, still within range of Kolaghan's Command. And our opponent unearths Thalia. Okay, so not a bad turn for Kolaghan's Command. Could do it now before they get to untap. Even though there's a small chance they have a white counterspell like Reprieve, which would be a reason to do it in their upkeep. Yeah, I guess that's fine. So destroy artifacts, deal 2 damage. And our opponent had an Ephemera to flicker Thalia. I'll bolt in response, so they don't get to rebound either. So that happens, still destroy your artifact. And then with a land, Glorybringer can maybe once again answer their commander. I'm sure they have removal in hand for Clive if we deploy it. But don't have anything else going on. And a Swords to Plowshares also could have answered the Glorybringer, so pretty happy with that. So now they could sack the Guide to play a 6 mana card. Take one first. And our opponent's just going to keep up a bunch of mana once again. So, yeah, could just replay Clive and then wait on Glorybringer / Fury in case there's more removal. A Solitude, alright. The other Evoke Elemental would have been a very good answer to Glorybringer especially. Now Fury can still deal with both of the opponent's creatures, but we really want to get the Rune Knight, so we'll see. Could also just Damnation here. Definitely the cleanest solution. And then we can keep our answers for future threats. Could be in trouble if they present some card draw engine that's not a creature. I guess we'll replay Clive. Third time's a charm. I would love to draw a Planeswalker here. That's maybe harder for the opponent to interact with as well. Ooh, Kroxa put in the graveyard through Surveil. And Clive turned into a Ragavan. Sheoldred's Edict still answers Kroxa, but they can escape it multiple times, potentially. So yeah, that's not what we wanted to see. They got to put it in the graveyard for free. And now I need to lose either Glorybringer or Fury. I guess I'll make it Fury, since Glorybringer can still just hit for 4 in the meantime. And can be exerted at a later date. So, make you sack a creature. And then I could hit See What We Exile first, but I'm just gonna jam. Was a Putrid Goblin, so didn't miss out on too much. Now, Black Overlord filling the graveyard also for Kroxa, and they found some goodies, Fury, Skyclave. Yeah, I think opponent's going to be able to turn the game around here. Gets Skyclave. Surprised I didn't go for Fury, since I could have answered Glorybringer. Combustible Gearhulk was a good top deck. Let me start there. Opponent takes 7. And then I don't think we exert yet. Even though Skyclave can maybe chump Gearhulk next turn, then we can still decide to exert. Could have played Cold Steel to be empty-handed for Kroxa. Now I keep the treasure, so maybe playing Cold Steel was still better. Although they might prioritize Kroxa when it's maybe not that great. Opponent channels Takenuma, more ways to recur creatures from the graveyard, so now they could get Solitude back. Although they're mana short of casting it, and our opponent explodes, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Imoti, blue-green, Cascade, Ramp. So I don't think this is going to be a favorable matchup if our opponent can enact their game plan. This hand is powerful but a tad slow, especially on the draw. But we do have Damnation as a catch-up mechanism, so maybe we use the Surveil to hit our land drops. Fable can also help there. And then Damnation, reset the board, hope they didn't ramp too much by putting lands into play. And then we can try and take over with the One Ring. It's a long shot, but I think we're gonna struggle in this matchup regardless. Turn 1 Liner Elves, not exactly what we wanted to see. Although at least it's a creature that will eventually perish to a Damnation. The Imoti deck unlikely to have too many counter spells, because those are a bit of a nombo with a Cascade mechanic. So our opponent's got another mana creature. So they are accelerating nicely, but they're also playing into our board wipe. And I'll keep the Signet, desperately needs additional mana sources. And maybe with a land we can already cast a turn 3 Damnation now. If not, with Fable we're also likely to hit our land drops. So they can play Imoti. It's going to be an Invasion of Zendikar instead, so get 2 more lands. That one's a bit better in the face of Damnation. Alright, so maybe Fable over Phyrexian Arena. Although if we're planning to Damnation, Phyrexian Arena does maybe make a little bit more sense. Although at least the token guarantees that we can make a treasure if it attacks. Whereas Phyrexian Arena with 2 draw steps I'm not guaranteed to find a land. So it's a close one. I think we go for Fable. The treasures could also synergize with Goldspan Dragon. But yeah, no land drop this turn is a setback. Opponent going straight for Coma. Yeah, that's a problem. They can make Coma indestructible. And Sheoldred's Edict needs to have a clean board first before it can deal with Coma in the first place. So I do have to discard. Solemn, probably too slow. And maybe Phyrexian Arena as well. The One Ring should still be useful. And Sheoldred's Edict is how we can maybe still deal with Coma. Although things need to line up quite perfectly. So it's a tough one. Yeah, let's ditch the arena. So I can attack with a Shaman. And then, do I even bother casting Damnation? Or do I wait to Damnation and Edict in the same turn cycle? Could make more sense. So then for now I could just play the One Ring to protect myself. And then next turn I'll have the mana to Damnation plus Edict. Could also Cold Steel Heart. So yeah, the Coma's Coils could also tap my lands down. So we'll see what they decide to do. Step 1 Imoti. Cascades into Carpet of Flowers. Don't have any islands, so that's fine. They can still transform the Invasion, but it's actually good in the face of our Damnation. So yeah, we'll see. Do you have a counterspell left, perhaps? Opponent taps out for key. So just gotta hope they don't start tapping down my lands with the Serpents, and then we might be able to pull it off. And get to untap. Sadly, Fable is gonna get swept up as well. Damnation, opponent's gonna make Coma indestructible. And then Edict can clean it up. They're gonna tap down my One Ring. That's fine. They can tap down my land or my treasure. I'll just float mana in response. And then hopefully goodbye Coma. Alright, so it took a pretty specific sequence, but we're still in the game. Emoti's back. Cascades into Lotus Cobra. And they can still make a bunch of mana. And we get to play Goldspan, maybe start drawing with the One Ring. Lenore Visionary gets to draw. Also still haven't seen what they got of Key to the Archive, I believe, so they could still have a Time Warp in there for all we know. But yeah, Goldspan seems fine. And then could even play a Black Market Connections afterwards. Both Connections and the One Ring are going to be taxing my life total, so I could see the benefit of just playing a Cold Steel Hearts and then can activate the One Ring in the opponent's turn. And yeah, there's a Time Warp that they got off Key to the Archive, so that's not ideal. They don't have the biggest board presence, but still taking at least 14 damage, and maybe they can add another creature to the board. So that was kind of the worst case scenario. Maybe they've got another Time Warp in hand and they can just string those together. And in fact, with Mystic Sanctuary in the mana base, with enough islands, they can just put it back on top and loop it. So if they just add one more creature to the board, we are dead. And Jin-Gitaxias will certainly do it. Can cascade into the Time Warp. Alright, GG's. So their opponent takes 2 extra turns. They can attack me for 5, then for 10, and another 10, so that's lethal. So we can stick around a bit longer to let the opponent have their fun, but we could also concede if we wanted to. Alright, GG's. They could have waited to maybe Time Warp with Jin-Gitaxias in play, so they could copy the Time Warp and take another extra turn. See Emrakul go by as well. So they could take control of my turn if they cast it, but not if they just put it in play. So their opponent's well and truly going off. Well, I'm glad we managed to destroy Coma, but yeah, this was always going to be a tough matchup. Another Time Warp goes by. Could we have done anything too differently? Yeah, I don't think Phyrexian Arena would have saved us if we keep it, so this was probably our best chance. And one more attack will do it. Pick up the Bramble Familiar, can cast it again, copy with Jin-Gitaxias, get some more value. Yeah, Mystic Sanctuary is a powerful tool when you have a bunch of fetch lands that can find it. Hullbreaker Horror, another powerful creature to ramp into, can bounce all our stuff. Hits Oracle. And they just need to turn the team sideways here. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Clive, partnering with Titus, so our opponent just gets an extra commander for free. Our hand is keepable but not exciting, missing double red as well. So maybe we try something else. Alright, this is maybe a bit better. So I can Chromox out Ironcrag, pitching probably Electrodominance. So then I could impend Overlord next turn already, but probably go for Clive and then try and cast it for 6. Or play Connections. That's maybe a bit more exciting. So then next turn I could cast a 6-mana Overlord if we get to make a treasure. Choose all 3 modes. Pedal to the metal. And then... yeah, probably don't want to cast my 6-drop into 2 blue open mana. So we'll try Clive. Opponent counter spells, at least there wasn't a mana drain. Back to the command zone. With our delve spells, we can also consider letting Clive end up in the graveyard where we can delve it away. Okay, opponent once again keeping up all their mana. Start by attacking for 3. So do we try the Gearhulk? Do we replay Clive? I guess I'll replay Clive one more time. That works. Gonna decline to transform. Possible we see a board wipe, but at least then they're gonna be tapped out and we can resolve something big. Alright, just a Wilderness Reclamation, so that does imply that they built their deck with a lot of instant speed spells, which means counter spells most likely. But yeah, we managed to sneak these connections into play. I should probably slow down on the 3/2 tokens now. And then step 1 attack. And then even just casting the Gearhulk would be enough. Opponent going for a ransom. They can have a dispute. They can have Thoughtseize. Opponent took Snapcaster Land. So now the coast should be clear for Gearhulk. Deal 6. And we likely get to draw here. Okay. Could still cast Solemn by cashing in my treasures. Could also impend the Overlord and go upstairs. Yeah, let's do that. In case our opponent can maybe bounce all our treasures somehow. And our opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Azusa, so mono-green ramp. Opponent can go pretty big. Our hand's got potential with a Dark Ritual, maybe speeding up a Gilded Lotus for a more permanent ramp. So, Fabled Passage, maybe just getting a tapped Swamp initially, and then Polluted Delta. Can get a Blood Crypt, or I can get Mountain. And then Delta can get Swamp as well. But yeah, we're not gonna Dark Ritual anything turn 1. And I'll wait on playing Grief. Opponent's got a Once Upon a Time. Finds a Gingerbread Cabin. Okay, gain 2 of Adventures in. And that's it for now. Alright, now with the ring, I could already Dark Ritual out the ring. And then we're better set up for next turn. I do get Blood Crypt, so we have double red taken care of. So then ideally I draw land, so I can cast a 5-drop. If not, we still have some other options available. So Azusa immediately plays 2 extra lands. So removal's not the best answer for Azusa. Did not draw the land, I'm missing double black for Grief. So yeah, not ideal. Deluge would answer Azusa, but they can easily replay it. So maybe it is time to Grief. Pitching Deluge, keep the Breach. And then I can also play Clive. Sure. Or we could play the One Ring to maybe draw into a land for next turn, if we fail to get there. Yeah, let me just Grief first. Opponent had a Null Elemental Blast, countering multicolored spells or destroying multicolored permanents, so that could have countered Clive. And then Winding Way can find more lands. Well, I guess we just don't play Clive and take the Winding Way. And play the One Ring. Thought-Knot Seer cannot target me because of the One Ring. So awkward timing. Alright, so now we could go for Glorybringer. Exert, take out Thought-Knot, I get to draw. That seems good. As opposed to Gilded Lotus, which sets up Breach the Multiverse, which is also decent. But I kind of like dealing with the threats in play. The sooner we exert Glorybringer, the sooner it can exert a second time. Find a Lightning Bolt. So yeah, just having the info of Null Elemental Blast is quite useful in helping navigate this game. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the Grixis Wizard deck. So this is going to be a tough matchup. But what do we think of our hand? Can draw 2 with Knight's Whisper on the play, so we don't have to discard to hand size. And then Chandra with some other spells that would be nice to copy. So turn 1, I'll just Surveil. Best to use our Wooded Foothills over Bloodstained Mire, since Bloodstained can get both basic lands, whereas Foothills can only get mountains. So if we're gonna get our Surveil land first, that leaves more options for later. It's the little things. And a Guardian Idol I'll keep. So we can ramp as opposed to drawing 2 cards. Our opponent does the same. Now we do have an Abrade, so I can Knight's Whisper and then still hit their Mind Stone. Trying to slow them down. Next turn we could already play Fury if they present the targets. Otherwise I'm okay with Clive. Opponent's gonna counter it. Maybe if I had a Delve spell in hand, we let it go to the graveyard so we can delve it away and then send it to the command zone. So our opponent once again keeping up a bunch of mana. Some hesitance to play Chandra, which is a spell we really want to resolve. So we can run back Clive. Subtlety will send it back. That's fine. And they had a Deadly Dispute, nice. So the wombo combo here. Sacrifice your evoke creature. I'll leave it on top. So that's going to be our next draw step. So I'm not going to want to shuffle. So I can cast it for 3 mana, since I don't want to run Chandra into another counterspell if possible. But yeah, we're not really leveraging our mana advantage too much, which is a bit concerning. Could get in for 2 with Guardian Idol. May not be worth it if they have spot removal for it. Although then again, they would probably prioritize Clive. So maybe it was fine to get in for 2. So Clive gets dismembered. Opponent still technically has double blue up. So they could still counter Chandra. Maybe time to go for Archive, and then I can still play Fury afterwards. Alright, that resolved smoothly. Yeah, I guess Fury's reasonable, or we can just play Chandra now. And I don't even have to fetch. That resolves. Just gonna +1. Find a Lightning Bolt. And yeah, if Chandra makes mana, double Devil's Play could just be lethal here. Alright, and our opponent explodes. Chandra's too much for them to handle. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Sephiroth, Mono Black Sacrifice. Not going to be an easy matchup, although we do have Dark Ritual, maybe ramping out an Archive on 2. So that can help. Scalding Tarn either gets Mountain to Galvanic Blast on 1, or we can get our Surveil Land. Yeah, I'm actually not opposed to blasting the freebooters so they don't have something they can easily sack to Sephiroth. Then again, by making a treasure we can let them ramp out a 3-drop, so that's maybe not ideal either. So maybe I should just Surveil. And then I'll keep a Haunted Ridge. So next turn I'll have 5 mana. Okay, maybe Clive and then still blast in the opponent's turn. Never mind, Mind Spike can now take the Overlord. Took the Galvanic Blast. Maybe they have another discard spell. Just a Link Breaker. Well, at least I didn't waste my time dealing with their 1-drop. Now we could Grief. Seems better than Overlord. Can also maybe take away removal. Okay, opponent had Village Rites to draw 2, cut down, can answer Grief. And then Ophiomancer can be a steady supply of Snake tokens. I think Village Rites is the scariest card here. I'm okay if they cut down Grief or Clive. Just I want them to draw into answers for the Red Overlord. So they get to make a Snake. I'm just gonna shoot down the Ophiomancer itself for starters. Not really in a hurry to trade. So there's Sephiroth. So if the Overlord wants to attack, it probably needs to deal with the Snake before we destroy Sephiroth. They can still cut down Grief, but Sephiroth would not quite transform. But they will still get an extra trigger. Okay, so I can play Clive and then still Withering Torment Sephiroth in the opponent's turn. I'll do it under upkeep. Trigger Clive, 3 more damage. This can backfire if they have another Village Rites-like effect. So that works. Keeping Crucible in hand to maybe make some 1/1s. Alright, Dark Ritual, so we'll see what they can ramp out. Maybe Sephiroth comes back, although we just died to the Overlord. So I imagine they have something else planned. Apprentice can also slowly drain us. And a Forsaken Miner, also very synergistic with Sephiroth. And a Fatal Push finishes off Clive since we enabled Revolt for them. Alright, not a disaster. So now it's going to be kind of an awkward race. But yeah, I can replay Clive. Could also sack Hedron Archive soon. Deal with the Apprentice. Yeah, we both drew Dark Ritual, but turn 2 Ritual to set up Archive was a bit more beneficial. Alright, so we got to see our Black-Red Clive the Vial Smasher deck in action. And yeah, as far as Black-Red mid-range decks go, it's pretty fast at closing out the game once Clive can stick the landing. Not the most powerful commander you can choose for kind of this more mid-range approach. And of course, you could always partner Clive to get access to 4 colors, and then the world is your oyster. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.